Hippity hoppity, you damaged my property. Bippity boppity, I'm calling the coppity. Bippity boppity boo, they're taking your kids too. This happened shortly after college. My mom is a retired, disabled woman who now owns her house on a quiet residential cul-de-sac. She has lived there longer than anyone else. Her neighborhood has designated parking spaces at the end of the cul-de-sac, all with the addresses of each house painted in the parking space. My mom doesn't get out much, so I use her designated parking space. At the time, we lived in the same city and I visited her weekly to bring groceries, fix broken things, cook for her, etc. My mom parked her car in the backyard of her house, since she went out so little. Mom kept busy by gardening or baking/buying cookies for the children on the street. Mom's neighbor, Ivy, never parked well. Whenever I stopped by, her car was always parked so close to my car that I had to park on the curb. I wouldn't have cared about Ivy's piss-poor parking but for two things. 1, she had 4 or 5 kids and had parties almost every weekend, leaving trash in mom's yards. 2, I loved my car, a 2016 metallic ice blue Dodge Challenger Hellcat, the first car I had ever purchased brand new. I washed that car once a week, detailed the interior, and had rules against eating, drinking, or even leaving trash in my car. It was my pride and joy. Mom had called the police throughout Ivy's residence because of the parties. Ivy's guests would fill up the cul-de-sac with their cars, obstructing traffic, and get into loud, drunk fights at and after midnight. I often found empty beer bottles, empty condom wrappers, cigarette butts, and empty crack baggies on the fence between the properties, mostly on Ivy's side of the fence. This is all important information. One Saturday while having dinner at mom's house, I heard a loud crash and my car alarm went off. I ran outside to see Ivy's older model Honda Accord back out of her parking space and speed down the street. Ivy's Accord had a dent from the front bumper to the door and the headlight had popped out. I approached my Challenger with trepidation and screamed in anguish at what I saw. My car, my beautiful 3-week-old car with less than 500 miles on it, had a dent stretching from the passenger's door to the front bumper and the right front wheel was tilted at a 30-degree angle. I was livid and in anguish as I called the police, filed an online claim with my insurance, and arranged for a tow truck to take my damaged car to the dealership. The estimated cost of repairs came out to $3,400. Total cost of repairs was eventually $6,500. I had a low insurance deductible, $100, but my car was parked and Ivy owed for the damages. For 2 weeks, I knocked on Ivy's door or waited for her to come home. She stopped driving her damaged Accord and either rented or borrowed a Ford Fusion. When she was home, she didn't answer the door. When she wasn't, she stayed away until my rental car, a Dodge Charger, left mom's parking space. I left a note on Ivy's door for her to call me, but only received harassing calls from restricted phone numbers or people blaring air horns in my ear when I answered. The revenge: about 2 weeks after the accident, Ivy's children came to mom's house for some cookies. I noticed that 2 of them had bruises around their eyes. If Ivy hadn't hit my car, I still would have done what I did, but maybe not as underhandedly. I had mom take pictures with and of the children but waited until the next party to strike. Ivy had a party that night or the night after. Mom called me to let me know and I installed an app onto my phone that gave me a fake phone number. I called 911 and reported the party. There's a loud party at 1007 Mountain Drive, and I'm worried because the children are around all these drunk adults. Please, hurry. Mom called to let me know the police had arrived. I drove to her house, stopping by the grocery store first so that appeared to be the reason, and saw Ivy and her boyfriend Bane already sitting in the back of a squad car. From a news broadcast, that night, I found out that Bane had warrants out for his arrest. Initially, the charges were disorderly conduct and disturbing the peace. However, Mom turned over the photos of the children, anonymously mailing them through the post office with Ivy's address and name as the return address. Less than a week later, Ivy and Bane were charged with child abuse charges. I think Bane was charged with more severe charges as well for abusing Ivy's daughter. Either way, the children ended up in foster care, and Ivy and Bane ended up in prison.
My friends had while I was sleeping in the same bed. I can't talk with anybody about this, so I guess I'm just trying to rant here on Reddit about this. This happened 2 days ago, so it's still fresh and I don't know how to process this. I'm just gonna use some random names because I don't ever want them to find out I wrote this. My best friend Alex and another good friend Paul were on call around 5 p.m. on Easter Monday. They were planning for a trip to the Netherlands in the summer where we're going to visit a good online friend together. I was pretty hyperactive and full of adrenaline that day, so I decided to go on a walk while still being on the call. After a while, we spontaneously decided to have a sleepover at Paul's, so I packed my things and arrived at like 6 p.m. We were having fun the rest of the evening. We played cards, listened to music, and talked a lot. At around 12 p.m., we decided to go to bed. We were sleeping in one bed. You must know my friends are very cuddly. I would have joined the cuddling, but I can't sleep without my free space, essentially, because it was hot, sweaty, and skunky in this room. No wonder, considering we were 3 people on a warm spring day in a pretty tiny room. So not long after we all went quiet, I felt how how the mattress was moving in a pretty regular rhythm. For the picture, I was lying on the wall side, Alex in the middle, and Paul at the edge of the bed. I was already suspicious, but at first I just ignored it and didn't think much of it. But after a while, Alex started heavy breathing. My virgin ass started panicking. In the evening, before we were talking about our sleeping habits, I told them purposefully how I'm not tired at all and how I will have trouble falling asleep that night. I did know before the sleepover that Alex and Paul are sleeping with each other, but I didn't think they were going to do it when I am laying next to them. I mean, I joked about it before, but I always make it clear that it stays a joke because I will never hook up with close friends. Anyways, they continued doing that next to me. I heard every move loud and clear because I was 2 centimeters away from them. I didn't know what to do because I felt uncomfortable as fuck and I didn't want to just go, quote, "Hey, can you please stop? I'm awake." So I pretended to wake up from a bad dream. I cried and shivered in panic. Props to my acting skills. And my friends stopped immediately to check on me. That was cute of them, though.
What? No, it's not.
They asked what was wrong and acted all innocent, and they didn't just almost next to me. Paul probably felt bad and decided to sleep on his gaming chair, while Alex and me slept on his bed. Alex gave me a sleeping pill since I told them I couldn't sleep. We talked a little, and at like 2:30, we went quiet again. Like half an hour passed by, and while I was waiting for the sleeping pill to kick in, Paul got into bed again. After a while, they started doing it again.
What the heck? Then I get mad.
At this point, I just accepted my fate. I stole the blanket and tried to sleep. The sleeping pill made me nauseous and thirsty as fuck. Alex and Paul did it through the night all over again, and my perception of time was so distorted. I can't tell if I even slept for 1 minute. In the morning, they acted all innocent and wished me a good morning, asked me how I slept and all that. We had breakfast together, acting like nothing happened. Alex needed to head out quickly because they had a school-related meetup. I didn't want to stay any longer and pissed off right after Alex did.
What the?
No.
Have you ever met someone for the first time and instantly knew they were terrible? A few years back, I made a late night stop at a local Walmart on my way home from a friend's house. It was in a quiet area, not a lot of people out and about. At nearly 1 a.m. I've lived around there for years and never run into any truly criminal elements there, so I felt safe going to the store alone as a woman in my early 20s. I made eye contact with a teenage girl the second I walked in the door. She was parked on a bench by the restrooms, hugging a backpack and small purse, checking her phone with a rather desperate expression on her face. When she looked at me, I could tell that she on the verge of panicking. After a brief second of staring at me, she went back to checking her phone and making phone calls. At the other end of the bench was a white-haired man in jeans and a t-shirt. If I had to guess, he was probably in his late 50s or early 60s. Altogether, nothing appeared off about him. But what struck me was the fact that he never looked up as I passed. Instead, his eyes were absolutely glued to the teenage girl next to him. Not in a passive way, but like he was sizing her up for something. She was perched on the edge of the bench, angling herself away from his gaze and leaning away from him. Her body language screamed that she wanted nothing to do with him. Something about him set off warning bells in my head as I went about grabbing the items I had stopped for. I'm normally the type of person that mills about stores aimlessly, making a point to wander each aisle just to see what's for sale. That night, however, I felt a pressing need to get in and out of the store as quick as possible, and something in the back of my head told me to keep an eye on the man on the front bench. I moved my knife from my purse to the front pocket of my jeans where it would be easily accessible. That's how uneasy I felt being in the same building as this man. As I purchased my items, I watched the pair on the front bench. The man had moved halfway across the space between them, and was trying to chat with the young woman. She was shaking her head and offering one-word answers, looking like a rabbit about to bolt. As I walked past them again to leave with my purchases, she stopped me and asked if I was headed anywhere close to my old hometown. Apparently she'd been on her way home from a trip with friends and they had made a stop to grab drinks and use the restroom. She'd gotten separated from the group and they left her at the store. The store was about a 30-minute drive from my old hometown, and I knew that to get home she'd have to walk several hours along unlit stretches of rural highway. The man sitting next to her continued to leer at her but refused to look my way. While I would normally have told the girl that I was headed the opposite direction, something in the back of my head told me not to leave her alone with the man. I agreed to take her home, and she thanked me profusely and offered gas money and a cigarette. I refused both and took her home, the logical part of my brain reasoning that the girl weighed maybe 100 pounds and was a full head shorter than I was, so if it came down to it I could fight her off. I wasn't stupid either. I texted a few friends to let them know what I was doing and they were not happy with me. During the drive, she told me that she'd just moved to the area with her mom and younger sisters from a larger city several hours south. She'd taken off with a few of her old friends for the weekend and her mom hadn't expected her back until the following day, so she'd silenced her phone for the night and hadn't picked up when the girl tried to call. We arrived at our destination, and the girl gave me a handshake and a thanked me repeatedly, asking if there was anything she could do to repay me. I told her, yeah, do me a favor? Get better friends.
Story time about how my boyfriend boyfriend cheated on me and the girl tried to get her cousin to fight me. So a little background information, I was 14 and in 9th grade, and one of my friends had sent me a picture of my boyfriend, who we are going to call Julio, with another girl. And my boyfriend and I are neighbors, so I told him to meet me outside. I confronted him and I was like, why are people sending me this picture of you with another girl? Like, are you cheating on me or something? Now, let me tell y'all something, okay? Never ask somebody to their face if they are cheating on you. Never. Now, if you have physical evidence, like proof of them cheating, yeah, ask them to see if they'll lie about it, duh. Like, we all have to do that. But if you do not have physical proof, do not ask them if they are cheating on you.
Stupid.
Like, the whole entire reason that they are cheating on you is because they want to eat their cake and have it too. Anyways, so I confront him, and just like any other person, he has a long list of excuses. He's like, oh my gosh, absolutely not. That girl is crazy. That picture is from a long time ago when her and I were dating.
Hey, that's pretty good.
You know, I'm not gonna lie, that is actually one of the smarter excuses I've heard, because at that point you're gonna be like, oh, okay, they used to be in a relationship. You're not gonna ask her. Like, that's weird, at least to me. I don't want anything to do with anybody's ex-girlfriends.
Fuck no. And I'ma stand on that.
Anyways, so fast forward a few months, I decided to send that girl a friend request on Facebook, and she accepts it, and then she posts a story tagging who? My boyfriend. So then I kindly ask her if she's dating him, and then she goes, that's none of your fucking business. So me, on the other hand, you know, still trying to be the calm one because there's no reason to be hasty about the situation. I tell her that him and I have been dating and that I think he's cheating on me with her. Her and I get into a very heated argument when, like, girly, the whole point of this was not to argue. I just want to know if my man is cheating on me with you. Like, I hate when the side pieces get an attitude. Like, girl, the chances are after I find out that he's cheating on me with you, you can just have him. Because I am not a f***ing raccoon and I do not dig out the f***ing garbage, and he is garbage. Absolutely not. Anyway, so after a few hours, I end up calling my man, who was low-key never even my man in the first place, and I kicked his ass to the curb. And he got mad that I messaged this girl. You know what I hate even more than the side piece getting mad whenever you confront them? When your boyfriend gets mad at you for catching him cheating. Like, yes, baby, I went through your phone, / texted that girl. Like, cry about it to the side, not me, because I do not have time to deal with that. The next day, a girl shows up at my ex house. So I'm getting super nervous that this girl's gonna try to come to my house and start something with me. Well, fast forward to the next day, my best friend comes over to my house, and there was a car sitting in the middle of the road very close to my house, and my best friend kept telling me that we needed to leave, but you know, my dumbass was like, no, we're not going anywhere, blah 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 blah, it's nothing. Well, it was something, because the girl who went over to my ex's house pulled up on us, and she got out of the car and tried to fight me. And yeah, it turns out that that girl was the cousin of the girl that he was cheating on me with. Look at him, classy, keeping it in the family. Go off, sis. The girl that he was cheating on me with finally snapped out of her delusion because she found out that she was getting cheated on by my ex with her cousin. Her and I talk, and she's like, listen, if she tries to pull up on you again, let me know and I'll come and I'll beat her ass. Well, fast forward, that girl ended up having a baby at 16 or 17. And I don't know if it's his or not, because after a few weeks, she stopped coming around. And the girl that I originally had beef with, well, actually, let me rephrase that. The girl who originally had beef with me started dating my ex again. Him and I haven't talked since that day, but when he sees me, he literally always stares at me. And he sees me like every day, duh, because we're neighbors. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm still in love with him, but that is the way life goes.
Mean lady hates everyone, so we buy her house after she loses it from debt. Is we're new wooden floor. My grandparents will be moving in her old house this fall. The house we live in was built at the same time as hers. My parents were often at the construction site and help if they can. The strange lady was nice to us at the beginning. But that changed soon. This happened around Christmas 2017. We have a neighbor who is very unpopular in our neighborhood. She is well known for harassing people who use the public path at the left side of her house. The path is 1 out of 3 to reach the public playground behind her house. If someone uses the path, she would scream at them that this is her path on her private property, which is wrong. Sometimes she would close the path with a red and white plastic chain and won't let anyone use the path. She would scream at kids on the playground when they were loud, at daytime. She always has her shutters almost down so she can stalk the people on the street and stay unseen. If some kid's ball landed in her garden, she would bring it to the kids and destroy it with a knife right in front of them. All kids knew this and would run by her house if they wanted to go on the playground. When the neighbors' kids were playing in the winter outside in the snow, she would call the CPS equivalent in my country and tell them they were locked outside by their parents as a punishment. If someone walked by her house at night, she would often call the police due to a noise complaint. She was known by everyone in our neighborhood as the witch. But she hated my family in particular. We lived right beside her house. Our houses shared one wall. When me and my sister were young, we would use the swing in our garden or jump on our trampoline. She would regularly file noise complaints and often harass me and my sister when we were alone in our garden. If my parents heard her screaming swear words at us from the first floor of her house, they would yell back. If me or my sister walked on the path by her house, she would scream at us. We used the path daily on our way to school. One time when I came home from school, she was in her car with the trunk on the sidewalk. When I walked by the back of her car, she howled the engine and the dark exhaust hit me. Almost every night she would hit the shared wall with something to wake us up. Sometimes she'd ring on our door and try to make us go to other neighbors to complain about small things. We often had lawsuits with her. One time because her trees grew 2 meters over the border. Another time because she built a fence by sticking bamboo mats in the dirt and tearing it down the next day and telling the police we destroyed her wooden fence. We won all lawsuits against her because my uncle, he's teaching law school, gave us good advice on how to deal with her and named lawyers he knew were good. She never paid the workers who repaired things at her house and the electrical and water bills. When her old car broke down, she didn't pay the car mechanic and never got her car back. She was in department and had a mortgage on her house. When the foreclosure came, we were at the court and bought her house. She was with us in the courtroom when the auction was and tried to buy her own house but wasn't allowed because she couldn't provide proof that she has enough money. We bought her house where she lived for 20 plus years in front of her. We bought it because my parents were at the construction of her house and knew the workers did a great job at building it. We renovated it when she left. We repainted all rooms, renewed the insulation and put everywhere where no till. Europeans who have visited the US, what is your what the F America story? I'm English and visited California about a decade ago. We'd been staying in a small town called Mariposa while we visited Yosemite National Park for a couple of days. My friends had continued their road trip on to Vegas, while I had to head back down to LA and get the plane home. I was waiting for a bus to the station in Mariposa. It was raining, uncharacteristically for April, I was told. A pickup truck pulls up. The first thing I see is a huge dog sitting on the passenger side. Then an old lady, I'm guessing around 60, peers over and asks me, "Where are you headin'?" I told her I was going to LA, and she said me too. Get in, and started pushing the dog into the back. Partly out of politeness but mostly out of curiosity, I jumped in. I think it was around a 3 to 4 hour drive to LA. As we set off, she starts listing all the things we have to do before we get there. Visit her friend to move a trailer, visit another friend who has broken her ankles to feed her dogs, visit a place where she could do her taxes. That should only take a few hours. It was going to at least double the journey time. Now in my head I was saying, F no, I don't want to do any of that, but I found myself saying okay. She was super happy. After about half an hour we arrived at her friend's house. She had 2 huge dogs and I found myself carrying an industrial-sized bag of dog pellets to fill a huge automatic feeder. While my new old lady friend went to use the bathroom, the slightly larger woman that owned the house showed me photos of her daughter and asked me what I thought of her. I said she was pretty, which wasn't a complete lie. She told me she didn't have a boyfriend and I nodded and smiled awkwardly. Then she said, "So you're going all the way down to LA with old lady friend, are you?" I saw my chance. Actually, I think it might be better if I get the train. Do you know when the next one is? Slightly large woman checked the train times. Then she hollered out, "Old lady friend. He needs to get the train. The next one's in 20 minutes. Old lady friend rushes, as fast as a 60-year-old can, back into the room, shows no signs of being perturbed, says we better get going, then we quickly get in the truck. It looks as though we may miss the train. Old lady friend is literally speeding down the road. She turns to me all of a sudden and says, "Has anyone ever told you about Jesus?" I tell her yes, that my parents have told me all about him. That doesn't put her off giving me a little speech and I don't say anything to stop her. I just smile and thank her. As we get closer to where the station is supposed to be, she winds down her window at some lights and shouts to a surprised dude on the street, "Where's the station?" Before accelerating hard and speeding round the bend in the direction the guy pointed to. We get to the station and there's time to spare. There's a bit of a queue at the ticket booth and I say thanks, and take my place in line. After a few minutes I reach the front and buy my ticket. I turn towards the platform and feel a tap on my shoulder. Old lady friend is standing there, apple in hand, a big smile on her face. She presses the apple into my hands and places her hands around mine. She bends her head in prayer. What she said I can't remember, I was too busy looking at all the people staring at me, an old lady whose head barely reached my chest holding my hands. Amen. Without another word, she walks away. The train arrives and I leave.